This is my new Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. I have had this in hand for a very short period of time, so I do intend to make a follow-up review in several weeks just to give it a more thorough analysis. Now, I did purchase this phone out of pocket for this series of videos, so huge thank you for supporting my channel. I am reviewing this before adding any customizations, so this will give you an idea of your out-of-box experience. Now, last year I checked out the S22 Ultra, which is the one that I have here. And comparing the two physically, I know this one has a case on it right now, but comparing them physically, they look almost identical except for the color options. This lavender color is actually so light. Okay, so I am surrounded by the color lavender in here, so let's compare. For example, we have this backdrop here, which is a bit of a darker lavender color. This one is very light. Here's the white, phantom white S22 Ultra from last year compared to the new lavender one, so you can see a bit of a difference. There's a bit of a gray appearance in the lavender color. I also have this backdrop behind me, which is also lavender in color, so let's check that out. Ooh, that's almost exactly the same color. Okay, that's cool. Now my backdrop is a little bit more blue. This one is a bit more of a warmer color, but it's so close. That's so funny. I just thought about doing that. So of course I went with lavender. I am glad that they offered this color scheme because it totally matches my kawaii aesthetic, but there have been some big improvements over last year's model, even though it looks the same. Now it starts at about $1,200 for the 256 gig model. That's UFS 4.0 storage, but Samsung did offer a free upgrade to 512 gigs at time of recording. So yay for upgrades. Now Samsung did not offer good trade-in prices. So surprisingly, these were still available for release day delivery. My personal best option was to purchase this phone through a carrier and resell my old S22 Ultra myself, probably later this month, which is likely what Samsung wanted to do with people this year. I think they had a lot of carrier partnerships based on the numbers that I was seeing online. This was kind of disappointing for me though, since I generally buy unlocked phones, so I'm not locked into any kind of contracts or anything month to month, and I hope Samsung hears all the complaints that I've seen across the board, not just from me, and they switch to the higher trade-in value options next year. Now, if the Samsung fans disagree with me in the comments, that's totally fine, you're welcome to, but I do keep my receipts every single year when I purchase these phones, so I am able to compare the trade-in costs and the actual value for the Samsung credit that they offer to get freebie accessories with purchase, which was also lower. Now, Avi Greengart, a tech analyst that I follow over on Twitter, has reported that sales are better than the S22 last year, with 60% of pre-sales for the Ultra. I am curious if most of those sales though were on carriers. That would be an interesting comparison I would like to see. So physically, this phone has little changes that I think were very smart. For example, the screen is a little bit wider and it has more of a flat surface, so it feels more square. And the curvature has been changed very slightly. So if you don't like curved edges on phones, you might actually like this one because it's not as curved as the S22 Ultra or the Pixel 7 Pro. The screen is TLDR the same, no changes from the S22 Ultra. It's still that 6.8-inch Quad HD Plus dynamic AMOLED 2x Infinity O display, 1440p at 500 pixels per inch. It is smooth with a variable refresh rate of 1 to 120 Hertz, and it's very bright at 1750 nits brightness. I was actually really impressed by the quality outside on a very sunny, very snowy day where everything around you is the color white. I could still see everything very clearly on this phone. I did change mine to 1440p from the default because I just prefer high resolution displays. I tested the new enhanced comfort setting switch to adjust color and contrast. This tones down the vibrant colors to make it more comfortable to view. Personally, I like the vibrant hues of the Samsung display, so this is not something that I would likely use in like normal scenarios. I do use Eye Comfort Shield, and I do let that auto adjust whenever the sun sets, so I do get those warmer colors at night. Gorilla Glass Victus 2 is a change from the S22 Ultra, which was Victus Plus. Now, many folks, including myself, have noticed that Victus 2 picks up micro scratches on the display much more easily, so put a screen protector on this thing immediately if that bothers you. It is supposed to protect from things like cracks from falling better though. I have not tested this yet, but I probably will unintentionally test it and that eventually will happen, so I will post about it on Twitter. I will post that experience whenever it does happen. The ultrasonic fingerprint sensor is just like the one in the S22 Ultra. It's still super fast. It's the fastest one I've tested on a phone. It's also quite reliable, but you may run into issues if you're using a screen protector. However, you can increase sensitivity in the settings. Face unlock is also included as well. The stereo speakers did get an upgrade. It's a bit more balanced than the 7 Pro and the S22 Ultra. I've been using Bluetooth a lot, and this phone comes with Bluetooth 5.3. I've had zero problems with connections to earbuds so far, but I will continue testing this as well. Call quality and connection via Wi-Fi and 5G here in Denver have been satisfactory. As always, note that connection quality will vary depending on your own ISP, your carrier, etc., etc. I am still loving, I love this thing, the S Pen. I use it all the time. It's exactly the same as last year. No dimensions have changed, no weight has changed, nothing like that. Like I mentioned last year, I started my Android experience on the Note line back in the early 2010s, before I moved on to the Nexus. Y'all remember those? And then eventually Pixel as daily drivers. I use the S Pen almost exclusively for precise video and photo editing, or for remotely capturing selfies from across the room with the little button on it. If you like this video, I promise I won't throw this at you, but I will ask you if you can hit that subscribe button. That would mean a lot. I use subscriptions as an indicator that I'm actively building an audience here who is interested in this type of topic. So it lets me know if you find value in this kind of content. Thank you so much for subscribing. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy processor. I am sure the folks who were stuck with Exynos in the past phones will be very excited to hear that this new Qualcomm chipset is available in all the S23 Ultras. It's not market specific. This is touted as being 40% faster than the previous generation. Now here are some of my benchmarks from 3D Mark. That's the only one that I use for benchmarking because I feel like it doesn't tell the true tale of user experience, but of course your numbers will vary depending on your circumstances. It does get warm, nothing alarming, and if I'm editing and exporting 4K videos in Adobe Rush, it handles those flawlessly. I didn't experience any freezing or lag when switching apps, but this is something that I will be paying close attention to the more I use this phone, because I often see processing tends to show its true abilities after a month or two of using a new phone. RAM starts at 8 gigs, 12 gigs if you get the 512 gig storage option. This alongside the Snapdragon processor makes us a pretty speedy, zippy, smooth as butter, speedy phone. The battery life is awesome. Everybody who got this phone early and said that the battery life is good, I agree with them. It's very impressive. I use my phone a lot, and I was at 77% around noon. After using this for a bunch of test photos and videos of my dog, I was stress testing with benchmarks, etc., etc. I got down to 37-ish% life at the end of the day before I went to bed. This was my screen on time for the entire day. Yes, it's a lot. I was intentionally keeping it on for a long period to see how long it would last, and it lasted a very long time. It sports a 5,000 milliampere hour battery, but if that is not enough, this setting does not apply to games, but there's a performance profile that can be switched to light to prioritize battery life. And this is not the same as the battery saver, the saver option that you can find in your battery settings. The charging speeds are good, but the more I look at international phones, the more I feel like this is just It's just decent for 2023 standards. Like, some of the phones hitting the market now are multitudes faster at charging. It can do 75% in 30 minutes, full charge in 55 minutes. I still think that's good, but we are starting to see a lot of competitors offering faster options. Wireless power sharing and Qi charging are both available, and you get the best speeds with a 45-watt charging adapter. One UI 5.1 does have a few new functionalities to the phone, like you can now choose warm or natural tones for the colors for your selfies. You can set up your phone from a previous one. It's way faster now. You were always able to do that, but it's faster. You can just scan a QR code on the new phone to bring data over from your old phone. The new battery widget is useful, especially if you have multiple Android devices connected. Expert RAW photography is now built right into the camera application, so it's really easy to access. You can finally change your screenshots folder. Yay, that's useful if you're like me and you take a lot of screenshots and you hate having screenshots get backed up to Google Photos because why? Do we ever look at our screenshots again? No, we don't. The weather widget is cute now, has these little animations that come on the screen. The Bixby text call is like Pixel's screen call feature. I haven't gotten to experience this yet, but I'm looking forward to testing it. I still prefer vanilla Android that you get on the Pixel line, but I am digging these updates. It's making One UI a lot more fun to use. Now let's discuss the cameras. The photography out of this thing is very impressive, and the zoom quality is still the best. Caveat, it's still potatoes at the highest zoom setting, but it is better than others. My main use case for the zoom is when I'm on hikes and I want to zoom in on an animal or some kind of feature in nature, in the world around me. So it makes it so much easier to find out, like, what is that animal I see behind that bush way over there? The portrait photography surprised me. It's surprisingly good. It looks really, really nice, and it's a decent cutout. However, it still looks like it's computationally created, so there is that. Macro mode is important for my work. I do a lot of product shots in my Sailor Moon YouTube channel and Instagram accounts. The S23 Ultra created this kind of fishbowl effect with closer up photos, so you wouldn't get a straight line on a product, and it tended to blur the subject around the edges. Now, if I pulled away from a subject and then I zoom in instead, the details are lost and the photos are more grainy. I love the macro shots on the 7 Pro, but this one is really good. So here's some photo examples of the two side by side for you to compare, and let me know which one you think is better. The main lens is a 200 megapixel, although you don't have to take photos at this resolution, that's just an option. You can choose to save them at a lower quality to save storage space, but 200 megs does make a difference in the details, like with this photo of my cat Starbuck. She was named after BSG, not the coffee. The shutter lag is pretty bad though, and because of that, I'm not using this much for photos of friends or my fur babies. They just move too fast and I end up with blurry photos all the time. So go with the 50 megapixel option if you really want to like blow these up when you print them or something like that. Do you still do that? Sometimes I print out like travel photos, but that's about it. Still detailed photos, but the shutter lag does not suck as much when you go down to 50. If you hear noises above me, that's because me and my husband are taking care of a couple of dogs this week, and my dog is very excited about it. It did just snow around here in Denver, so let's see how this phone looks. It's a sunny day with snow on the ground, and here's what that white snow looks like. For videos, we have 8K 30p, which is insane, and we also have 4K 60, which is really sweet. I normally record all of my content at 4K 30 these days, so that's my main test range. I'm not a huge fan of the color in my recorded videos, and I prefer the saturation on the 7 Pro, but the stabilization is really good. Like, I was walking down these stairs and I was throwing this phone all over the place, and it still happened to stabilize me. It looks great. The front-facing camera uses a 12 megapixel lens now, and I thought it was gonna be a downgrade from the 40 megapixel lens on the S22 Ultra, but sometimes specs don't tell you the whole story. It does still make me look pretty good, even though I'm in my 30s. It's detailed. It still makes me look a little warmer than my actual skin tone. That's something to consider depending on your personal preference. But I did take a few other test shots on this phone as well. Not necessarily all of them are comparisons between my other phones that I have here in the studio, but some of them are. Okay, so what else is important? There's a lot of customizations you can do to your Samsung S23 Ultra to make it look more like for you. It's rich in features, cool widgets, lock screen add-ons, all sorts of fancy things you can do. There are cool themes that you can download to really make it look like your personality. I like the hardware. I think it looks really beautiful. I don't think I would recommend upgrading from an S22 Ultra though, since side by side, it's basically just a more refined model. It's like they built on top of the things that worked here and they just made them prettier on the new phone. So it's not a huge upgrade from the S22 Ultra, but if you do have an older phone, you may want to consider it if you can find a good deal. Now click on this video to see another Samsung video, or check out this one that YouTube thinks you will enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye y'all.